The following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed or the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide advice. All information and ideas presented should be discussed in detail with a qualified person or firm, whether legal, tax, or financial advisor. Securities offered through Terrio Investments Incorporated, a registered advisory firm. And now, with Motivate Money, here's your host, Michael Terrio.
And live in the WPSL TV studios, the one and only Michael Terrio.
How you doing, buddy?
Doing well.
Back in the studios, like the real life studio, not just hanging out at the office.
No. We'll add a few more cameras in here and get 6 different shots of you.
Well, I don't know if we need 6. That might be a little overkill. I don't know if we want to scare people away. We're trying to get ratings, not kill them.
So how are you?
You know, I'm good. It's been a busy weekend. A lot of news out there, a lot of good stuff, a lot of scary stuff. But overall, I've been good. How you been?
So you've been soccering it up?
Yes, we spent 6 hours in the car just Saturday alone. And driving through those rainstorms, I tell you what, I asked my wife the other day, I said, when did we move to Washington State? I know we live in a tropical rainforest, but for crying out loud, this is kind of getting crazy.
Is this Seattle or what?
Yeah, it feels like it. So
it does sometimes, doesn't it?
And then, you hope for the rain to kind of cut down the humidity, but then it comes back in full force, and it's just strong. But yeah, another weekend watching the kids play. We got lightened out one day, but at least we had 3 good games, and it's been a lot of fun spending time with the kids, watching them play. And I love this time of year. I know I'm crazy, but I literally would rather be nowhere else than watching them play. It's fun.
And, of course, Paul Stone, who's on our morning crew, is running Minnesota Viking highlights on our newscast.
Is there enough room
for
all
guys
of them?
from Minnesota.
Is there enough room for all those highlights? I'll tell you what.
All
that team is on
highlights,
fire, man. I'll tell you.
Now, give me a break.
They're 7-0.
If you count preseason.
There it is. That's
no, you can't do that.
They're 7-0. I'm taking it.
7-0.
I'm taking it. That just means our second and third string's better than everyone else. The second and third string, and God knows we're using them right now because we have a lot of injuries on that team. But the purple looks good this year.
The Super Bowl years for Al Davis, for the Raiders,
Mm-hmm.
didn't win one preseason game in any of his Super Bowl years. Yeah, and, he just uses them to evaluate people. That's it. Period. End of story.
Well, if they don't count, they don't count. But
they don't count.
3-0, and this one was a good win. Beating Cam Newton was a good deal. The only downside for me was the team I was playing against in fantasy football had the Vikings defense, and they scored 40 points, so I got killed. I'm already out of the game this week, so fantasy football and me are not best buddies at all. It's a really stupid way to spend a Sunday for me. I can't do it anymore. I'm terrible. I actually got so frustrated this last year with the draft that I put it on auto draft, and I ended up with 5 kickers, which does not. You don't need 5 kickers. That's crazy. So, but no, it's good to be back in studio. It's good to be talking and being live. I want to always remind people we are here live, so feel free to give us a call at 340-1590, 340-1590. But Greg, I'm back in studio versus being at the office in Port St. Lucie for some specific reasons. Maybe you want to tell people a little bit of what's going on and what you guys are doing here at studio, technologically speaking, so we can get more people to watch our show and get to know what we're doing.
We are doing a little crawling before we walk with our WPSL TV and all of the machinations on YouTube. And we will eventually, once we hit a certain subscriber base, which I think is, Cliff has said is 50, once we hit that, we can go YouTube Live. So then we will be streaming live. What we have on Ustream now just goes away. And then we will also be streaming live to Facebook as well. So,
Facebook Live.
Facebook Live.
World's changing, man. I'll tell you what.
It is. It's so absurd, and it's really neat.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to be here. I think it's fun. I like to be part of technology as long as it's working. And some of my technological issues we've been having at the office, but we feel like we're finally getting there. But as long as it's working, it's good. It's just like everything else. Market's working, market's not working, things are up there. But it's important to sit back, take inventory as far as what's going on. But I know you've seen it. The market's been back to being volatile again. Feds decided to not raise interest rates.
What do you mean again? It's been volatile since the first day I met you.
That is unfortunately true. But no, it's been very volatile again. We're seeing it kind of happen. And, I see right now this a little bit of a paralysis by analysis for people. I see a lot of people discussing the presidential debates and discussing the election, what this is going to do for the overall financial situation. And I think it's really important, folks, to kind of get an idea of what you're going to be looking at for your retirement with regards to short term as well as long term. And yes, the election's coming up in a few short weeks. I'm very much looking forward to it being over, as long as the right person wins. But I'm very much looking forward to being over. So I can actually get friends again, because Facebook, man, I'll tell you what, everyone out there has a soapbox.
It's brutal.
It is awful, and half the stuff people are putting up is fake. It's not real, but they're buying into it, and it's creating more and more of the frustration and the anger and the hate, and it's just ugly. I just want to get back to seeing pictures of people's kids. Yeah. That's what I'm looking for. But with regards to the market, there are some things out there, Greg, that determine the direction of our economy that are bigger than any presidential election. It's bigger than any election for Senate or Congress or anything that's kind of going on. And I talk about this quite a bit, is the demographic shift. What's really happening within our country and where opportunities are, but also where opportunities are not. And really getting an idea of what type of strategy you should be utilizing to get you from where you are now to where you want to be, but not just a 6-week segment. You want to be looking at this thing long term, much less, versus just going short term on this whole deal.
Sure.
And we see that happen quite a bit, where people are so fixated on the short term that they can't see past that, and it can really end up hurting them in the long term.
And a lot of us who, had put a lot of money into our businesses, during the recession, if they're still alive now, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But, with a lot of less nest egg that you would hope for retirement.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the $1 million number is not the same number it was when I was a kid.
Too.
Yeah, but if you look at it this way, you got to think about it. The largest portion of our population was born in 1961. Okay, and they're called the baby boomers. 10,000 baby boomers.
I graduated from high school 2 years after that. But
we were part of the.
I know. Yeah.
We'll leave that there for you. But the largest portion of our population was born in 1961. That was the actual peak. If you look at the Immigration Adjusted Birth Index. Then we also know that people, statistically speaking, spend the most amount of money at 46. So if GDP has a 70% factor of GDP is based upon what you and I spend every single year, and we spend money in a predictable fashion, you would assume that at some point we can utilize some predictability to make recommendations, to make predictions as things are moving forward, based upon the facts that you and Carol and Casey and myself, we're going to have very similar lifestyles, just different time periods in our lives depending upon different ages. And it's a very, very proven thought process to look at these demographics and really say, okay, where are some opportunities right now, but also where do I need to kind of pull back? And I'll give you a great example. What age do you think you eat the most, or actually that you spend the most amount of money on snacks? If I were just to give you a number.
Oh.
The most amount of money on snacks.
I would say maybe 30s.
Okay, 30 is a good guess. Most people actually consume the most amount of snacks at 14, but they're not buying them. Mom and dad are buying them. So if you actually look at the demographics of it, snacks are most often purchased as far as the largest quantity when our consumers are 42 years of age. So if you look at this and say, okay, let's look at this. How does this actually work? Let's take 1961.
Sure.
Throw the age of 42 on top of that. We get to 2003. Agreed? That's where we are. When's the last time you bought a Twinkie, Greg?
It would have been in the 70s.
It would have been a while ago, right?
When the kids were.
Yeah, probably you were in that around that time.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't 42 exactly. Maybe it was 46.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
yeah.
You get the point of that whole
I
thing.
I get it.
So what happens is, Twinkie went bankrupt. I mean, they were gone. Twinkies were gone. Now they've been revived, but really people still aren't buying them. It's kind of like Crystal Pepsi. Why do a bad idea twice? Anyway, but they brought it back. But if you look at it, the demographics play a huge role in our economy. Look at McDonald's. I use McDonald's quite a bit. I have one client of mine that owns several McDonald's franchises. We talked about this all the time. When McDonald's initially came out, they were a burger place, right?
Sure.
You went in there, you got a fast burger. It was burger, cheeseburgers, right? You had milkshakes, French fries. I remember as a kid, I could get those hot apple pies that if you bit into it, you get like third-degree burns in your mouth, but it was worth it. Like you're like, blisters, and it's horrible. And I remember we being able to go on the playgrounds that had the metal slides where you'd actually lose skin going down the slides. And, they let us actually be kids back then, right? Now they've got like places to hook up your iPad so you don't actually hurt yourself and put out any energy or exercise. But look at McDonald's now. Look at their actual menu. Pull it up sometime. Get an idea.
Oh, sure.
They give kids real apples now, not the apple pies that burn the heck out of you, right? They have healthy options. They have salads. They have yogurt. You know why? Because your generation, the baby boomer generation, your palate's changed. We came into a society that all of a sudden we were told that fat was bad, low carb or high carb was great, low fat was great. So getting rid of all that stuff. So if we didn't shift as a demographic, we didn't shift as far as what we were willing to buy. McDonald's could still have been the same way, but if they didn't shift, they would have fallen way behind the 8 ball and maybe not even been around. I mean, look at VHS. Right? Things have an S curve in our world, and so understanding what you need to do to put yourself in that position and to look at these demographics is going to be very important.
Give Michael a call, 340-1590. We're taking calls on health food today. No, seriously. If you need a health exam for your financials, give us a call.
Yeah, I mean it's a great way to start looking at these things and at least have more of a strategy. I always talk to people about the 3 things that you need to look at when you're working with a professional. You want to have the same philosophy with them, right? Philosophy, the philosophical beliefs are extremely important. If you're looking to work with someone who's going to promise you something, 30, 40, 50%, the Terrio Group's probably the wrong gig, probably the wrong fit for you. Our clients like to earn somewhere between 5 and 7, 5 and 8, putting ourselves in that position where they can have great, good growth over time. But the majority of our clients, Greg, never want to be exposed to that 38% downside again.
Sure.
They don't want to play that game.
I understand that.
Not only do they not want to, they can't afford to. And we always talk about the dreaded 4-letter word that screws up more investment plans than anything. It's called time, right? If you're 22 years old and you have 30 or 40 years before you actually retire, time's your best buddy. But if you're 60 years old and you have 5 years until retirement, or you're 55 years old and you have 10 years until retirement, and the market drops, time can be your worst nightmare.
Or you're 70 years old and you should have retired. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, so you look at these things, and that's a very important thing. So philosophically speaking, you want to work with the people that you enjoy. You want to feel comfortable with them. You want the philosophy to be the same thing. You want to, if it's important for you to know when you make decisions on your investments what that does for your taxation, we might be the right fit for you. If you want to know that if you make certain tax decisions, what that does for your investments, we could be a great fit for you. Because unlike a lot of other firms out there that have the disclosures at the end of their commercials that you need to seek tax help, my CPA is 10 steps down the hallway. It's a beautiful thing for us. So when I make decisions for our clients, we make them in a proactive fashion. We make them on purpose rather than by accident. That way we try to eliminate as much as possible that April shock and awe. So that's a philosophy. If you're working with someone who only sells mutual funds, I don't know if you saw this, but like the mutual fund store, for example, they only sell mutual funds, right? So what do you think the solve is going to be if you walk in there? Going to be mutual funds.
That's right.
No,
A or B.
Yeah, they're actually selling and they're changing their name to get away from the mutual fund store. Maybe they got sick of me ripping on the name, but you get the point. The whole day when you look at these things, understand what you're walking into. I always tell people if you're looking for a vegetarian meal, a butcher shop's probably the wrong gig. Right? So understand the philosophy. Once you get past that, though, when you feel comfortable and you kind of look at the person and their philosophy and how they work as far as a business is concerned, strategies are going to be the number 2. So when I talk about these demographic situations, I talk about what's going on out there right now, I see opportunities all over the place. Just because the market's volatile and just because there's scary stuff does not mean that you can't make money. I mean, we have a portfolio right now, year to date's up 18% with 5.5% dividend yields. Does that mean it's the right fit for everybody? No, and that's where strategy comes into play. It has to be a situation where, strategically speaking, they can afford that type of portfolio. They can take that type of risk.
That would be the younger person, I presume.
It depends upon the person. I mean, or someone who doesn't necessarily need that money that's growing for grandchildren or for children. It all depends upon the person's situation. But then what's your strategies for other people? If you have a client that comes in, and I've seen this all the time, that they have $500,000, right? They need, basically 5% to live off of it to supplement their Social Security and their pension. So that's $25,000. When I ask people, Greg, how many of you in this room, and I'll have 30, 40, 50 people in this room, how many of you feel that the market's going to grow 5% every single year without a hitch? No one raises their hands. Everyone understands that there's volatility in there.
Yeah, well, they probably won't. That's why.
The chance of it happening are very, very small. But how many of you feel that there's a good chance sometime between now and the time that you pass away that there's going to be one market downturn? And everyone raised their hands. And people are feeling that the 30 to 40, 50% downturn. We saw a 52% downturn this last down. That takes that person's 500 grand, Greg, in a normal quote-unquote portfolio, drops them down to $250,000. Now 5% is not cutting it, right? Now they need to earn 100% just to get back to even, while also maintaining an additional 10% per year to give them that $25,000. So there has to be a strategy of how do you address that? How do you look at that situation? And it can't just be by hope. It can't just be by sitting down and saying, hey, we hope it. But what happens oftentimes is that people don't know that this is even an issue. They look at their portfolio, they sit down with other professionals, and what happens is they say, okay, here's what your portfolio looks like now, Greg. Here's what it looks like in 30 years. We assume your portfolio should earn X number of percent. That's financial plan for most people. That's not a financial plan in my world. So when you look at the strategies, for me, I'll say, here's what your portfolio looks like using historical values in a weighted variation. So it might be 6.2, 6.3, 7 point, whatever it is, based upon the historical numbers. But then it would not be a prudent thing to not look at what the market would look like if it goes down, what that does to their portfolio. Or what if we have a bull market? What does that do to their portfolio? But there's other types of risk out there rather than just the risk of market. What about the risk of the husband passing away and losing part of the pension? What if the wife passes away and we lose part of her pension or maybe even her Social Security? What happens if there's a long-term care situation? What happens if? What happens if? What happens if? And those are crucial elements, in my opinion, to putting together a successful financial plan rather than just by hoping.
Well, or even we ran into a situation, we've had long-term care insurance maybe, 15 years. And the long-term care carrier let us know about a little rate increase.
A little?
Which was around 70% or something. I'm going, yikes!
And that's a debate that people are having all the time right now. Can I afford this? Should I keep it? I mean, we get probably 3 or 4 phone calls a week from people saying, Mike, here's what's happened. Can I afford this? Can I still do this? Is this still a smart thing for me to be doing? And really, folks, the only way to deal with it is to actually look at it and say, do the numbers make sense? We got to look at the numbers, see what they look like. Here's, when you look at financial plan, I tell people this all the time, financial plan is a very emotional thing. I mean, if you think of the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into, you and Carol have the station, and me and my wife building our businesses, and you look at what goes into truly being a business owner, it's intense. It's a lot of work, and it's scarier than hell, right? When you look at those things, you have to make decisions, though, that make sense mathematically. And so what I tell people is I have no problem with people making decisions on an emotional level as long as there's math behind it. But just to see like a rate increase or this or that and say, I'm off or I'm in, and not look at the supporting data, that could be a very dangerous thing because you could miss out on that, right? So that's the important key component that we look at when we're looking at a strategy. Also within strategies, we look at things like this. I mean, I saw Yahoo Finance just came out. Sales of new homes tumbled 7.6% in August. You and I have been talking about this for 6 months, that we are starting to see crack in the foundation. See the pun how I did that? Foundation.
Nice. That's beautiful.
That's not bad. But we were talking about there's some issues here that we feel that there could be some cracks in the foundation of the housing market. I'm looking at right here live, coming from Yahoo Finance. That's a problem. These are things that if we see issues within the housing market, guess what can slow down? Building can slow down, right? If buildings slow down, then we have issues where people don't need the sheetrock, they don't need the wood, they don't need the shingles, they don't need this, and then guess what?
It's a huge domino effect.
It is. They don't need the employees anymore, and then you don't have the money that's going to the economy and to base GDP. There's so many factors out there. When you look at this economy, you need to be aware of what your portfolio is capable of doing. Okay, so here's the challenge I'll give each of you listening on the station right now. Besides the challenge, is giving us a call because we are live, 340-1590, 772-340-1590. Give us a call because I'd like to hear kind of what's on your mind. But here's the challenge I'll give each and every one of you. Truly be honest with yourself when you answer this question. Are you aware of what your portfolio is capable of doing? Okay, and what I mean by that is when I ask you, are you aware of what your portfolio is capable of doing? I understand that all the portfolios have this upside, and that's great. And I'm going to let you know a little secret. No one's ever mad when the market's doing well. Okay? There may be times when maybe the market makes 10, maybe the market makes 12, and maybe you're only pulling 8 or 9. But you probably have diversification, so you're not 100% S&P, right? Which is great. But what's your portfolio capable of doing in down times? Okay? if this real estate hits, and we still have more and more issues where real estate starts dropping.
And you have tons of REITs or something.
Exactly. What does that mean to your portfolio? Because what could be your portfolio, Greg? Maybe you don't have any real estate exposure. Maybe it's not a big deal at all. This doesn't even scare you, okay? But if someone has an 80% real estate exposure, that could be an issue. And I'll give you a great example. In 2008, actually, when I first came down to Port St. Lucie, I met a couple. They had 125 stocks. And when I asked them what they liked most about their portfolio, they said, we have diversification. Okay, 125 individual stocks. So they looked at it as the fact that they had diversification because they had 125 stocks. When I did the report on their overall portfolio, over 85% of their stocks were in the financial services sector of things such as banks and mortgage lenders and things like that. They literally got crushed.
Yeah.
And I tried to warn them, but they liked the dividend. They liked all these different things that they thought they were getting from this, and they didn't see the issue of the actual exposure that they had. Okay? So what is your portfolio capable of doing? When I look at the good, when I look at the bad, what is your portfolio costing you? If you don't know these things, you need to know. If you don't understand what your current portfolio, the makeup of your portfolio right now would have done in 2007, 2008, it's probably a great time to look at that just to have an idea of what your portfolio is capable of doing. Because then you have that data, Greg. And you could look at it and say, okay, now that I'm aware of this, what type of techniques should I utilize to hedge and protect against another one of those downturns if you're not comfortable with that?
Yeah, I ran into somebody who had several different types of stocks, but they were all transport.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding.
Yeah.
You're not diversified, I said, you need to talk to somebody. This is, you're going to get clobbered. And he wound up getting creamed.
Well, you
Same
also,
period of time.
when you talk about the strategy, one thing to look at the strategy is making sure that the individual that you're working with, that's your advisor, and I'm using the quotations because now we're on TV, so I can do that. Make sure your advisor's not putting everyone in the exact same thing. I've seen that happen locally here. 4 mutual funds. The only thing that one advisor used, 100 and some accounts. How is that going to work for each and every one of those individuals?
And I'll tell you, you've really opened my eyes because I remember the guy we had in L.A. who just said, don't worry about a thing, guys. I got it. I got your back. Don't worry about a thing. And it's like...
Famous last words, right?
Yeah. Well, time to worry once we moved over here.
Yeah, it can be scary, but
Yeah.
if you're out there, folks, and you have some questions as far as what I really mean by this, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you, 340-1590. That's 772-340-1590. When we come back, I want to do some market updates. I want to let you know kind of what's going on out there, but I'd love to hear some calls, hear some comments, concerns, some good things, some bad things. Let's figure out what's going on in Treasure Coast, because I'd love to be able to be part of putting you in that position of power. And we'll have a little bit more absolute money management when we come back, my friend Greg.
Yeah, I think so. We've got just about hair under a minute to go.
Well, I can talk for a minute. That's not an issue.
There you go. Phone number for Senior Terrio here.
Yeah, give us a call, 772-340-1590, 340-1590, or feel free to go to our website at www.theterriogroup.com. That's Terrio. It's a great way to get to know that philosophy I spoke about, some of that strategy I spoke about, and also to potentially set up an appointment if that's something you're interested in doing.
And sooner or later, today, I would imagine, we will be able to see this show.
Oh, yeah.
On YouTube, on Michael's website.
Probably our Facebook, too. That'd be a good place to put it.
Oh, yeah.
Spread the word, folks. Spread the word.
That's it. Motivate Money continues right here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie. WPSL TV on YouTube. Hey, subscribe. Getting close to going live.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Welcome back to Motivate Money with Mr. Michael Terrio.
You want to say Monday Night Football?
Blah, blah, blah.
Well, welcome back to Monday Night Football.
By the way, Monday Night Football will not be on tonight.
Why? Because the old
Got
debate,
booted by Trumpo and
you got
and
quote-unquote
Clinton.
trumped.
Yep. The NFL got trumped. And because of what happened, horrible situation down in Miami with Jose Fernandez, we will be carrying the Marlins game obviously, because they've got all sorts of things planned for pregame and stuff like that. Awful situation.
Yeah, that's not
Ooh.
not the type of news you want to get when you wake up in the morning. That's a awful deal. Awful deal.
Yeah, and he just announced that they were going to have a family. Him and his girlfriend, and it's like, oh. And you think about everything he went through, captured 3 times when he was trying to escape Cuba. And, he finally got out, 4th attempt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah, it's not a good situation. I mean, those are the times that we talk about. Bad things happen to great people, and being prepared for those type of scenarios. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. Do you remember that movie Poltergeist?
Oh, sure.
That one. My oldest son wants to watch a movie. We're trying to figure out the best first scary movie for him.
No.
I think Freddy Krueger's probably out of line because he's only 10. But we were thinking maybe Chucky because it's kind of funny too, like the little Chucky doll. But he's still 10, and I highly anticipate he's going to be in our room for a couple nights after he watches something. He really wants to watch something. I had my 7-year-old and myself. We watched Harry and the Hendersons a week ago. So that was as scary as it gets. As Bigfoot on the side of the road, who's hilarious. That movie still holds up. I'm not gonna lie, John Lithgow almost had a full head of hair in that movie. It was pretty solid movie if you look back at it.
If he wants Chucky or something, just have him watch Monday Night Football. I mean, the old coach can.
That's true. That is true. He's a little terrifying.
He stares into that camera, man. He's terrifying.
Not a lie, but no. When I say they're here, I cannot believe I'm going to read this to you, but I've been talking to you about this a while. The government mortgage giants, both Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, have started to ease loan standards yet again. So to bring in more first-time home buyers, we just talked about the mortgage market's having some issues. So what does the government love to do? They love to create these man-made bubbles that I talk about all the time. But to create more first-time home buyers, the mortgage company will allow borrowers to include income from others on their applications, and they don't have to provide a paper trail proving where down payments came from. I love this.
Do we have history books that don't date back to 2008?
I love it because I can be arrested and get a fine if I go fishing without a license.
Oh.
But I don't have to prove anything to the government as far as where the down payment came from. I mean, wow. In my industry, we go through this whole money laundering, anti-money laundering, training that we do all the time. This would be a gigantic red flag if it was anywhere else but going to the government. It's kind of like what you were talking about, the fees, and you don't know where they go. They just kind of go to the kitty. So Freddie Mac now allows first-time home buyers in the underserved neighborhoods. Oh man, I don't even know what
Whatever
to say.
that is. Yeah. Oh, we
to
know.
Include the income of people who live in the home but won't be on the mortgage.
Oh.
Okay, on this application. So borrowers can also include income from second jobs they just got, which I can see that part, but they just got it, so there's no real history of it. So you can go to a second job, work for 2 weeks, prove that you have the second job, then be done, right? And don't have to prove where they got the down payment. This is becoming more and more like those subprime loans from the mid-2000s. And we all know this. Nothing went wrong with that, right? I mean, folks, this should scare the incredible heck out of you. I don't know how to say it. This should terrify people. Because I know several people who own their homes free and clear. Life is feeling pretty good. They're feeling groovy, like there's nothing to really worry about. And they feel that they've done everything to set up their world, unknowing the fact that their neighbors around them could potentially be setting up another real estate time bomb.
Foreclosure City.
Oh, and I have a buddy of mine that just is in the process of selling his home in Port St. Lucie down by Club Med. He bought it a year and a half ago, and he's going to sell it for over 60% return. In 1 year, Greg. So let that soak in for a little bit. So, when you look at this, expect borrowers to claim that they're conned by the lender because this isn't going to work. I mean, if this happens for a while, it always looks good, right? And I remember just a couple months ago telling you I saw the movie The Big Short.
Yeah.
And I was in the mortgage industry for quite some time, in both the financial plan and the mortgage side. Watching these type of things happen, I just shake my head. I just have to shake my head because what they're trying to do is create this man-made bubble that's still going to make the market look good, and both parties are doing it, and it's going to end up creating a situation again when then we're going to have another Dodd-Frank Part 2 where they come out with other things that tie the hands of people who are doing the right thing when really, with all respect, the government's caused this in the first place. We did this in the early 2000s, folks. We did this because when we had 9/11 legitimately cripple our Wall Street system, when we got bombed by 9/11 by the terrorists in 9/11, literally shut down Wall Street. It freaked out everybody, right? And remember I talked about GDP. 70% of GDP is based upon what you and I spend.
Right.
So the economy crumbled. Then we had a president that came out, this time George Bush, that came out and said, hey, go out, buy plane tickets, spend money, get Christmas gifts, do all these different things. Why did he say that? Because he wanted us to spend money. Why? Because 70% of GDP is based upon what you and I spend. Very simple, right? But it didn't work. And so people were scared. People didn't want to jump on planes. People were scared to spend money. People were hoarding cash. People didn't know what was going on. And so they did the only thing they could do is they started stimulating by utilizing housing. They said that instead of making people pay their mortgages on time, instead of showing a track record of 700 credit score and that they could actually put money down, let's do a little bit less money down. Let's see how it works, right? Let's just put a little bit less down and just see how that works. And guess what, Greg? It worked well because people went out. They were able to refinance their houses. It created a little bit of demand in there, started spurring a little bit of building, and things started looking a little bit better, and the economy started feeling a little bit better. And they, well, heck, if that works, we got to put more gasoline on it. Let's lower the credit standards. Let's lower the actual the ability to prove your mortgage worthiness. Let's do it. Let's just make it easier. And then those performed pretty well. So then they got to the point, Greg, and this is not a joke. This is a real-life mortgage. It was done by a company called Mila, okay? 560 credit score. 1 day out of bankruptcy. 6 months out of foreclosure. Stated income, stated doc loan, 125% loan to value between the first and second.
No.
Done. All day long. And you could do an online application, hit submit, and as long as they had a 560 or better, approved. Approved. Now, I'm going to shock him. Mila's out of business. It didn't work out well. But think about this. I mean, you can't have an economy where the mortgage market's going up 37, 47, 57% like we did back in that time period, have people's incomes going up or staying flat like we have for the last 8 years and not have an issue. And so to me, these are those foundational cracks that we're starting to see. The next article down here is single-family housing was down 6% in August. Multifamily units were off 5.4. We're seeing a 4.7 up over year to year, but we're starting to see these things fall. Multifamily starts were down 11.8%. Okay? These are the things we start to look at when I'm looking at those strategies, how to be strategic with doing the right thing for people's money. These are some of those things we look at. Now, who should be concerned right now? I don't know. It depends upon what your portfolio looks like. Is this a concern for everyone listening to this show? Absolutely not. But that's why we talk about having a process, having a system. We utilize something called the 8 elements of financial control, which is basically a roadmap to cross the T's and dot the I's, if you will, to get our clients into a position where they can become proactive investors rather than reactive consumers. Okay? When I ask people, when would you like to know that your portfolio is capable of doing this? They say, well, I'd like to know right now. Then this is up to you. There's only so much I can do. I can put out good videos talking about the economy. I can be on the radio. I can be on television. I can do all these things, which we do to try to pump this, to let people know the power is in your hands because the responsibility is now in your hands. I mean, that if you look at the risk has gone from the employer to the employee. So we need you, folks, to take the time out of your day to sit down and say, okay, what do I have? How does it work? How does it affect me? Am I properly structured? Do I have things ready to go forward so I can feel comfortable, or do adjustments need to be made? It's kind of like you're at halftime right now, right? You're sitting down with your coaches. You're looking at it and saying, okay, we're basically at a point where we're up by 10 points, but the defense is looking better. Our offense is looking worse. What kind of adjustments can we make to make sure we ensure that we protect this game? Or worse, folks, you're down. You just don't know it. Can you imagine?
It's like your undefeated Vikings.
They are so good. They are so good. I love watching them. I can't lie. I don't have a lot of news for them. Otherwise, their stock should be up, right? Because they're looking good.
Boy, their stadium is nice.
It is beautiful. You know what's funny, though, is I remember when the Sam Bradford trade happened, I was not the happiest camper about that. Getting rid of first-round draft pick next time, I was like, whoa, come on. But I'll tell you, it was so funny watching the guys on ESPN, your alma mater, where they're out there saying, this is the dumbest pick ever. The Vikings totally screwed this. They should not be doing this. And then the next week, they're like, the Vikings could easily win the Super Bowl. I mean, it was literally within 1 week. They're like, they could win the Super Bowl this year. This could be their year. Bradford's such a great fit in the offense.
I want the over-under on how many games he's going to play.
Oh, you think he's going to get hurt?
Sure.
You're a pessimist.
I just go by record. That's it.
Want to hear something interesting? I think this one's interesting. Michigan rejected Tesla's request to sell cars in their state. Sell cars in their state, totally. Citing a recent law that bans auto sales directly to consumers, Michigan regulators rejected Tesla's business application.
Whoa.
That's an interesting one, right? So this is what it means. If there's ever a case for deregulation, there it is. Michigan passed a law requiring car makers to have franchise dealerships. Tesla doesn't use a franchise system. So all their dealerships are part of the company. It'd be wrong to say that there's no business reason for requiring franchises. Michigan's dealerships, our dealership owners clearly identified the issue. Tesla's business model unfairly cuts out the middleman. But at least they're honest about why they don't like it. The entire reason for the law is to protect the middleman that adds in a layer of cost to the consumer. Tesla is now suing, but Dent Research doesn't believe they should. This provides a window into legislative thinking in Michigan. Tesla officials should thank them for raising the obstructive flag early and move on. It's interesting, huh?
Wow.
If Ford's even up there, they're looking at moving to Mexico now. So, this is the whole conversation.
Just the small cars. Come on.
We don't want them here anyway. We want the big trucks. That's what we want.
That's
Gas is cheap. Load them up. Go for the big Yukons and Denali's and
That's it.
F-150s and stuff like that, right? Go big or go home. That's the way I always look at it.
Oh,
Market's
man.
not having a wonderful day today. We're seeing the market's down about 143 points. Anytime we see things swinging 3-digit points, tends to show the volatility numbers up there, and people are really just kind of wondering what's going on.
Where's my oil?
Your oil's looking at, it's up actually 3.42%. It's at $46 a barrel, so people that have that in their portfolio should be pretty happy today. It's not a horrible number. Global Dow is down 0.89%. That's the biggest loser so far. Biggest winner is oil. Gold's up a ticker here, about 0.25%, so nothing huge over there. But here's the thing that's really interesting. The Feds teased us last week, again. There was a lot of people saying we're going to raise rates. 3 of the Fed members said that they wanted to raise rates. The rest of them said no. When I speak in front of people, Greg, it's really interesting because I say to them, how many of you feel warm and fuzzy about the economy? None of them raise their hand.
No.
None of them.
You can't.
And I said, but wait a minute, we're at 18,001. We were 18,005 just a few weeks ago. I mean, these are record highs. We're really up there in the Dow Jones world, and S&P, we're looking at 2150 today. So why don't you feel warm and fuzzy? And here's what's the problem: is they don't have the answer for it. They don't really know why they don't feel warm and fuzzy. But the problem is they just don't know how to figure this whole thing out. And I tell them that they're not wrong. When we have a strong economy, right, one that should be going up, normally what the Fed uses, they usually use the raising of interest rates to keep it in check. We have an economy that's at 18,000, for God's sake. We were at, 5,000 a few years back with the crash, 5,000 change. We're at 18,000 right now, but they're still keeping interest rates historically low. 10-year treasuries are paying nothing. All these scary things are kind of happening. When they talk about raising interest rates, that should mean that the economy is in good shape. So when they talk about raising interest rates, the market plummets, which doesn't make sense. Counterintuitive. If they're talking about raising interest rates, it means we're strong. So why would the market drop like that, right? Because they want the free money. When they say that they're going to keep interest rates low, the market skyrockets. Because what's happening right now is people are making money based upon the false information that's really going on. And they've literally learned how, since the government's created these man-made bubbles, they've learned how to manipulate the system to line their own pockets. But the majority of the Americans out there are trying to figure out what in the heck is going on. They're freaked. When you look at the biggest portion of our population, the baby boomers, they're being forced into an area of comfort that they're not comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? I mean, we look at 10-year treasuries paying 1.5%, 1.6% over 10 years. They're being forced into a place that they have to take risks that they're not comfortable with. They're put them into a risk box or a risk category, but they have no other strategies to what to do. They don't know where to go. That's where our 8 elements of financial control can really help people put them in a position of power. That's the strategy that we talk about within, working with someone who's strategic.
Yeah, and you just feel free. Give us a call. We got about 10 more minutes left. If you want to give Michael a call, or give him a call at the office. If you're a little shy and don't want to talk about finances on the radio, feel free. Give him a call at his office, and your telephone number there in lovely St. Lucie West is Mr. Terrio.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I would love to call. I'd love to hear what kind of things are on your mind. I tend to continue to talk if you don't stop me. So feel free to give me a call. It's good here. At least I'm with you and Cliff, though. I'm not as lonely as I normally am just sitting in my own office doing this. But it's nice to be with friends.
Well, you got guys, wandering in and out.
I do. That's true. But, yeah, and so before the headlines, the Feds did release some interesting information. So the governors now expect GDP growth of just 1.8% this year. They expect 2% in 2017 and 2018. I mean, these are horrible numbers.
Singapore, I saw, are they going to be 8% next year?
Yeah, I mean, look at the thing about this though. 1.8 this year, 2% next year, 2% in 2018, and 1.8 the following year. That's the growth we get from putting $4 trillion into this economy. A false, fake liquidity. That's what we're getting. That's disgusting. That's despicable.
Sure it is.
And that lets me know that we may be here for a while. You know, many people sit back and say, Mike, when do you think interest rates are going to go up? And my honest answer is 2009. I missed the heck out of it, But the government continues to falsify this. And if you think that this is going to work, I'll give you my next story. Bank of Japan. And I've talked about this for years on the station. If you want to see the demographic shift in real life, go do a little bit of research on Japan. Go do a little bit of research on what Japan has done with their quantitative easing, just like we did, and go look to see how that thing has had little effect over time. It gets worse and worse and worse, very similar to a drug. And eventually what happens with countries is they continue to get this drug, they continue trying to put more and more and more and to get that high, and eventually you know what they do? They die. They have an OD. They don't work. They end up like Spain. They end up like Greece, and they need to get bailed out themselves. Here's a Bank of Japan. Their target yield on their 10-year bonds, they want to push it up to 0%.
Push it up to. So they're at a negative rate now.
Yeah, the Bank of Japan announced it was pleased with most of its monetary policy, but would like to see the 10-year government bond yields above 0. Unbelievable. To that end, the central bank will change its bond buying more short-term versus long-term, less in the middle, to achieve this. So what does this mean? Maybe they could have been more disappointing, but I'm not sure how they could have done that. The yen strengthened after the policy statement, which is the exact opposite of what they wanted it to happen in the first place. A stronger yen means more expensive exports and deflation at home. Think about it. If the yen's stronger, that means it's more expensive for us to buy the stuff from them, which creates deflation, which there's nothing you can do with deflation. Sure. With inflation, you can raise interest rates to kind of change it. With deflation, you just got to ride out the pain. It's like sunburn. It sucks. You're there, you're burnt, but there's not much you can do to really soothe the pain, right? If they had the deflation at home, that's just more of what we've seen Japan go through for decades. I mean, that's been the biggest problem. So at this rate, the yen will dip below $100 per U.S. dollar in the next several weeks. At that crucial psychological number, I think the Japanese bankers are going to get nervous. The next logical step in their monetary experiment is helicopter money. Now, we talked about this. Remember that?
You've talked about it, yep.
It's possible they could announce some sort of cash program before the end of the year. If they don't, then it's just more pain ahead for this country. This is what happens when you continuously not let the government or let the economy do what the economy does on its own. There's two different types of issues out there. There's organic and there's man-made. And I'm telling you, Greg, the man-made stuff scares the heck out of me.
Yeah, and it's wow. You look at what we're going through here. And Japan is what? That's over 30 years, I think, right?
It's been close to 30 years that we've been seeing this deflation. Yeah, and deflation's a son of a gun, man. It's very hard to beat a deflationary world, and especially when you look at Japan and how much of their world is based upon exports. Same thing with China. I mean, if China ever told us the truth about their money, you'd be very interested in seeing that. But that's one of the reasons why when people ask me about the actual collapse of the dollar, I'm not as worried about that because China would be losing one of their largest purchasers, and we wouldn't be able to afford any of their stuff because their currency would skyrocket, just like what we're talking about with Japan right now.
I remember when Japan bought half of downtown Los Angeles, and about 10 years later, foreclosing on all the properties, and you just think, wow, what in the world is going on over there?
Yeah. I mean, it's literally a case study for this type of policy and the fact that it doesn't work.
What not to do.
They continuously do it. It's absolutely crazy to me. It's like knowing for a fact that drinking and driving is a bad gig, but you just go out and try to see. Oh no, I can handle it. I can do something different.
Is Geithner their new prime minister or something? I mean,
he's trying to still pay his taxes on time. So let's let him.
Oh yeah, right.
Let's let him off the hook a little bit. He's got work to do. I mean, you gotta love the Treasury. The guy who doesn't pay his taxes on time
runs the Treasury. Oh yeah. Well, that's a little bit of income there.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the whole thing. But, man, folks, think about it. If we have a situation where they really raise interest rates, let's say they really raise them, okay? So for you long-term bondholders out there, that could have a major impact on you. So what's important about money to you, or what's going on with your money, and have an understanding of what your portfolio is capable of doing, you should know that. And the flip side, if they also raise interest rates, that's going to have a negative impact on the stock market. For those of you stock jockeys out there that are having all your money in mutual funds, VAs, and ETFs, and individual stocks, you got to be aware of what your portfolio is capable of doing. I mean, these are the reasons why we have this show. And if it's something you want to do and you want to sit down with us and kind of get an idea of what's going on, because I've said it before and I'll say it a million times, there's more to the protection of your money than just the Dow Jones. Okay? There's more to the protection of your money than just the fluctuation of the stock market. If you want to sit down and at least get a second opinion and get an idea of what's going on so you can make smart strategic decisions, call me. You can call my office at 772-807-4628. That's 772-807-4628. We'll walk you and guide you through the 8 elements of financial control process. You get a great idea of how we go about our business and how we've been able to help so many people here on the Treasure Coast. And, worst case scenario, if it's not the right fit for you, had a great cup of coffee, a couple cookies, and you're on your way. No big deal. We've met a good friend, and we're happy about it. But if it is something where you like what we do, the question I ask people oftentimes is, Greg, if there's a problem with your portfolio, when do you want to know? Do you want to know now or after we've had a significant drop in the market?
Oh, definitely now.
Right. So,
yeah.
Give us a call at 772-807-4628, 807-4628. You can also look us up online at www.theterriogroup.com. That's Terrio, theterriogroup.com. Or, as Greg alluded to earlier, go to our Facebook page, like our Facebook page, so that when we get this broadcast of this show, we can put it on there. You can share it with all your friends, let people know what's kind of going on. Because, my main goal out of this show is not to pitch product. I mean, I hope you've noticed that by now. I don't mention product very often at all in this show because my goal here is to pitch an education.
You haven't since day one.
Yeah, so, my goal of this show is to sit back now. I mean, we will talk about annuities in general. I'll say, hey, here's how annuities work. I'll talk about stocks, and here's how stocks work. But I'm not here to pick a particular stock and say here's what works for everybody. That's not our style. What I want to do is give you basically the education so you can take that knowledge and put yourself in a position of power. What I explain to people quite a bit, though, is I believe that while knowledge can be power, it's only power if you actually take the time to implement it. If you take the time to say, what do I have, Mike? How does it work? How does it affect me? Have that data and then make decisions based upon that. That's where you're actually putting yourself into a position of power. But if you sit back, you have this education, you don't take the time to sit down with someone and really realize and dissect what's going on, take an inventory of your financial situation, then give us a call. 772-807-4628 for your complimentary appointment. Give us a shout. We'll be looking forward to talking to you soon next week. Protect your money, folks, but more importantly, know what you're protecting it from. I'm Michael Terrio from the Terrio Group. This has been Motivate Money. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
And welcome to WPSL TV, my friend.
Thank you, sir. It's good to be here.
All right. Give Michael a call. Motivate Money. Every Monday right here on WPSL.
Motivate Money is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed or the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide advice. All information and ideas presented should be discussed in detail with a qualified person or firm, whether legal, tax, or financial advisor. Securities offered through Terrio Investments Incorporated, a registered advisory firm. For more information about this program, for a free brochure, or information about upcoming educational seminars, call 772-807-4628. Email info@theterriogroup.com or visit online theterriogroup.com. And join us again for Motivate Money Monday mornings beginning at 11:05 here on WPSL Port St. Lucie.